answering some questions that you guys asked yesterday. So let's get into it.
The first question is, what do you recommend for a reactive dog?
What do we recommend for a reactive dog? Well, I don't know what the dog is reacting towards, but could be anything. So first, we need to develop skills. We need to develop patience, self-control, impulse control. Those are the things that we should focus on first. And then we need to work on the reaction, with whatever it is. Okay, so I guess you could not do any of that. You could literally just like plunge the dog in the situation or in the environment or put them around whatever it is they're reacting towards and control it. Okay, meaning like on the leash, you could. And that's almost desensitizing them. Okay, it's almost like controlling the reaction until they eventually just relax around it. But for most people, that's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult because the dog doesn't take any direction. It makes poor decisions. Again, it's impulsive, no patience, no self-control. And so all of a sudden you're just trying to get your dog to deal with something or deal with the situation is very difficult. Because if that were the case, then anyone who was having a reactive dog would solve it by just allowing the dog to continue to react and them just controlling it on the leash, and then it would eventually just go away, which obviously it doesn't go away. So I think you need to remove the dog from whatever it is it's reacting towards and develop the skills and strengthen the relationship between the two of you by learning again to take direction and then apply it. So if we have a dog that's reactive towards people or other dogs or again whatever it is, we're not putting them around those things at the beginning. Obviously they're going to be around other dogs that we have here, but we're going to limit their ability to, I guess, be around them physically so we can limit their reaction until we've worked on their skills. And we're working on their skills through their obedience, right? So if you have a strong stay, you're teaching impulse control and patience and self-control. So that's what you got to work on first. You got to work on the skills and develop some strong obedience and understand that you're actually developing the ability to take direction from you so that you can guide them and then put them around whatever they're reacting towards and try to develop the correct understanding.
Right.
So a dog could be reacting because it's insecure and fearful, or it can be reacting because it wants to control it, right? And go after it. So we need to develop the correct understanding either way. Like the recipe for success there is the same for either one. Right. If your dog is trying to go after something and control it, or your dog is wanting to run away and be fearful of it, the recipe is the same in terms of teaching a dog how to deal with it without some type of reaction. And so that's really learning to relax around it. That's what's not happening. If your dog is reacting towards things, they're not relaxing.
Right.
So reality is we need to teach how to relax on command, which essentially is your downstay. And then you can, implement it with whatever they're reacting towards. So that could be somebody coming in your house, a guest. That could be a dog that they see outside or skateboard or whatever it is. We need to teach them how to relax. And so again, relaxing has to do with those skills, patience, self-control, impulse control. So work your obedience, proof your obedience. You have to proof it. You got to work around distractions.
Right.
You got to work on duration. You got to work on distance. Okay, you have to work those 3 Ds there to proof the obedience so then it can be applied around whatever is causing the dog to react. Again, you could not do any of that and just put your dog in the situation and sort of just control them until eventually they relax, but that's very difficult. I also think it's almost just setting the dog up to fail, right? Because so sure, your dog might learn to not react towards whatever it was, but they're not going to listen. They're not going to take direction. you're not going to be developing a lot of impulse control. They're just going to figure out, oh, okay, anytime I react towards this, you control me.
Right.
That's it, right? So it's not really going to strengthen things between you, but you could control it, and they could get over it, right? So I think that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
The next one is, how do you teach a strong recall?
How do you teach a strong recall? Well, I think the first part is teaching them their name.
Right. To
Right?
come to their name.
To come to their name.
Yep.
So I think previously we were showing this, I don't know, maybe even last year, and someone had asked us, why do you want the dog to come to you when you call their name? We were showing how to develop the name, and basically having the dog come to us when we said their name. And so that person said, why do you want the dog to come to you when you call their name? And my first thought was, well, what else do we want them to do? If I call the dog's name, I mean, I guess they could just look at us, right? But essentially, if I can teach them when I call their name, that means come to me. I've essentially taught them how to come by just teaching them their name,
Right.
right? So the first part is teaching name, because you can't call your dog to you unless they're paying attention to you. So you have to be able to grab their attention somehow, right? So teach them their name and try to teach them that their name means come over to me. Okay, that's like the first part. Right, and then once they have that understanding, then again, we need to proof it. So when you're saying strong recall or reliable recall, you need to put a ton of reps in. So just random reps. You need to recall your dog around the house just randomly. Let them roam around, call them to you, reward them. This is just food-based. They come to you, get rewarded. Okay, you're done. Go to another part of the house, call them to you, they come, reward, you're done. Like, you need to do this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times to where the response is quick. And we're doing that inside of your house where it's a controlled environment, right? And then you're practicing, even there, you're practicing when your dog hears something, or somebody's walking by the window, or again, there's someone at the door. That's where you want to practice the recall, because it's still controlled, but you have now some type of outside distraction that's catching the dog's attention, right? So that's in the house. Out of the house, if you have a yard, you need to work your long line, right? You need to put the long line on, 20 or 30 foot long leash, and you need to let them roam away and call them back. And it's the same concept. You call them. If they don't come, guide them with the leash to you. And in the beginning, sure, go ahead and reward. Eventually, you need to fade that reward out and only be rewarding them when they actually come to you when called. So you need to put in another few hundred reps of just that, right? And build that, okay, you can have freedom, but I need you to come to me when I call you, but you're using the long line to make sure that it can be done, right? That what you're trying to bypass is when you call your dog and your dog looks at you and says, whatever. That's what you're trying to bypass. You need to be able to reel them in so that they have the understanding that, oh, okay, I'm going to have to go to you because I'm on the leash, but if I go to you when you call me, I get rewarded. Right? So most of the time, that doesn't happen. And then what happens is the dog is out in the yard or they're somewhere else, and then you call them, they don't come. You start raising your voice, you start getting demanding, you start getting upset. Come here, come here, come here. And the dog's like, nope, not going to do it. Right? So we need to be able to bypass all of that and just teach the dog that we can reel them in, and then teach them if they do come, they get rewarded. If they don't come, we can reel them in, don't get rewarded. So now you're working with decision making. If I listen when they call, I get rewarded. If I don't listen when they call, they reel me in. So it's beneficial for them to listen because they're going to get rewarded. Right? So we need to put a few hundred reps of that in, and then you need to take that and work it outside, right? You need to go out, go on your walk, use your long line. Again, I've shown plenty of videos of this with our dogs that are at higher stages and levels of their obedience. Okay, we're taking them out on the long line. You go to a park or you're on your walk, you give them some freedom, and you work the recall.
Let them get distracted.
Let them get distracted, call them to you. Right? So you need to go to a park, go on a walk and do that. When you're hiking, You're going to be doing that also. So, I mean, look, in reality, we're never letting our dogs off the leash. They're going to be on a long line. You go to the beach, you're going to use your long line. Okay? There really is no environment, like outside of your own environment, your yard or your property or whatever it is, that like your dog is going to be off leash. Okay,
Right.
so maybe if you go to a dog park or a dog beach, we're not big believers in those anyways because they're very out of control and can sort of, your dog can get into trouble there. But there really isn't an environment that your dog is going to be off leash anyways. Or should be. I mean, okay, yes, some people might live on a farm or whatever where, maybe you could. Okay. This is also where maybe your e-collar would come into play if you had worked your way up to that, where you can give that amount of freedom, but still have a tool to work on their response, right? So those are going to be your steps for strong recall,
Yep.
right? Okay, next.
Why do you use the cots?
Why do we use the cots? Why do we use cots?
Well, we use the cots because we want to have a clear idea of where the dog is. But, you work a downstay, but you want to use the cot so that you know that the dog isn't, if they're crawling or whatever, you know exactly where they're supposed to be, right? Because when you're working a downstay, it's very important that when they break it, they go back to the exact spot that you put them in the first place. So the cot's going to give you a clear idea of exactly where you're supposed to put your dog.
All right, it's
Right.
clear for the dog. They're either on the cot or they're not on the cot.
Yes.
Right. So.
And not to say that we don't, that's not a place command. It's just downstay wherever we stay, and it happens to be on the cot.
So, the idea is we use the cots so that, again, it's clear for them. They're either on it or they're not.
Right.
A lot of the times when you're working with your downstay, your dog might start to crawl.
Yes.
So the cot will eliminate that because then obviously they're just stepping off of the cot, and you can
Right.
basically say, hey, like there's a clear boundary here that you need to stay within. So the cot is for that reason, but yes, we teach downstay.
Right.
So even before we get to the cot, we're teaching how to lay down and stay
Yes.
off of the cot.
Yeah.
And then we just implement on and off the cot. So yes, a lot of trainers will teach place command, right? So meaning they actually develop downstay by teaching place
On a cot.
or the bed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we're saying, obviously, when you go to get
right.
coffee or you go to a restaurant, you're not going to take your cot with you. So
Right.
you need to be able to just have your dog lay down and stay wherever you tell them to, right? So we develop downstay as a whole.
Right.
And then we add in, okay, now we just need to do it on the cot for right now.
Yes.
Right? So it'll also, with the cot, it gives you the ability to also tether them if you need to. You can kind of tie it to the cot as you start to work on your distance and moving around and whatnot. Okay, so it doesn't hold them there, but it does give them a little bit of a reminder if they do step off, if you're in another room, like, oh, right, okay, I'm supposed to stay here, and then they're not roaming and wandering around and getting into things.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, the cot is for that reason. It's very simple. It's clear whether they're on it or not,
Right.
and where they're supposed to be or not.
Yeah. Next question is, are you hiring any beginner trainers?
We're not currently hiring any beginner trainers. I mean, mostly just because we're still doing it. We still enjoy training and caring for our dogs, so we're still doing it. We are also doing this at a pretty high level in terms of it's pretty demanding. The hours are long, the time is long. I mean, you guys, anybody who's been working with us for quite some time will understand that we do this for months on end with
Yep.
not taking a day off, right? So we do this 3 or 4 months in a row, and then we take 3 weeks off. That's pretty hard for most people to do.
Right.
Right? We haven't found anybody that's sort of really willing to do that at the level that we want them to.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's just the way we do it.
Yeah.
It also just takes a long time to teach.
Yeah.
And so
It'll take away from our dogs.
it takes away from the dogs. We could have somebody shadow us and just watch, but I mean, even as we're just trying to show you guys sometimes, as we capture things while we're training, it does take away from our training.
Right.
Right? It does. So, I mean, look, I guess we could alleviate that by maybe just having like a beginner trainer film us and they're learning while they're watching, while they're filming for you guys. Like that could happen. But, you know, it's also for me in general. Like we're in our groove. You know, we have our routine. And just kind of bringing somebody into that sort of throws us off.
Right.
And that's just for right now. You know, previously, my younger brother's worked with me for many years. He's worked with us. He's kind of been one of the only ones that can handle the pace and handle the workload. It is a lot.
Yeah.
Caring for these live animals day in and day out. You know.
The way we do it.
The way we do it.
Yeah. Right.
This is a lot of care.
Right.
Right. And we're dealing with dogs at all different types of levels, all different types of issues. So it's not something that, you know, isn't out of the question in the future. And it's always on my mind, being that, yeah, we'd love some help.
Right.
But, you know, just not currently in the cards for me right now for where we're at.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking. You know, maybe eventually, as you guys like continue to ask, like maybe it might be the right time, right?
The last question is, what if my dog has selection anxiety? 3 weeks is too long.
I'm assuming you mean separation anxiety, right? Just right off the bat, as you ask that question and say 3 weeks is too long, that's why your dog has separation anxiety. You have that problem because you feel that's too long. So you're already putting a ceiling on what is needed, right? So the dog doesn't understand the concept of time. They're in the moment creatures. They're so reactive. They're so adaptable. They don't understand the concept of time there.
Right.
So that's us coming in saying that's too long for the dog.
Right.
We've come from a place of doing this with thousands of dogs,
Yes.
and day in and day out still currently of caring for dogs to watch them adjust. Okay, so the rescue dogs we work with, they come from whatever situation they were in, they go to a shelter, the rescue gets them, they come to us, they go to a new home. The dog went from here to here to here to here to here and was able to adjust. So it's only the human approach and the human mindset that puts that ceiling or that block on the dog. Okay, so, you know, I also think that, well, this is also part of why these conversations are very important to understand, again, probably why you're having that problem. You know, you're having that separation issue because, well, one, you haven't taught the dog how to be away from you when you're home.
Right.
So when we're working with dogs with separation issues, we're working with it while we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, so your separation issue is developed and solved. It's developed and solved while you're home with the dog.
Right.
You have to teach them how to be away from you while you're home. You need to teach them, you hang out over here while I'm doing this. You hang out over here while we're cooking. You sleep over here while I sleep here. That has to be a normal part to give space.
Right.
Then you can start to require that when you leave the house.
Right.
Right? It's like if your dog can't be patient and relax away from you when you're home, they're not going to be able to do it when you're gone.
Right.
And that's sort of the same with any behaviors overall. If you haven't taught your dog how to behave when you're home, they're not going to know what to do when you're gone. Okay, so I think this is just, you know, as we come from a place of, or I at least come from a place, she does too, but we come from a place of trying to understand dogs more at their natural level.
Right.
Dogs don't have separation issues within themselves naturally. Like, it's not a part of the dog world.
Right.
And mostly it's because, like,
We develop it.
well, it's a human development, yes, because we've created dependency and neediness between ourselves and the dogs.
Right.
But, you know, my explanation or my thought on this is that if you have a pack of dogs, 20 dogs, there's a hierarchy, okay? There's a hierarchy in a pack of 20 dogs. If you have an anxious dog in there, that pack is going to basically calm that anxious dog down very quickly by saying, if you don't get rid of that anxiousness and check yourself, you're not a part of the pack.
Right.
Because the anxiousness does not help the pack survive.
Right.
So if we eliminate, again, the feeling and the human approach there, and we just understand how dogs work, they don't work that way. They work off of we're working as a unit. And if we have an anxious one, it doesn't help. So either you have to check that anxiousness and get yourself correct and be a part of us, or we flush you out.
Right.
And a lot of the times that happens by the anxious one getting attacked. They pick on the weak, right? So dogs do that. Dogs will pick on the weak because for that reason. So human will coddle and protect the weak,
Yeah.
which is essentially also why we have that separation problem in the first place. It's like it comes from babying the dog.
Right. We nurture that.
That neediness.
Yes.
That anxiousness.
Right.
You pet the dog, you hold them when they're in that state.
Right.
So you've essentially reinforced it.
Yeah.
When your dog is in that mental state of anxiousness or demanding and neediness, and you come in and actually reward it by giving it attention, it says, oh,
You like this.
you like this. You like it when I'm this way. You like it when I'm anxious. You like it when I'm demanding. You like it when I'm in this state of mind.
Yeah.
You like it because you give me the good feedback.
Right.
Right? So in reality, you actually reinforced it.
Yeah.
And
then,
this-
now you have an anxious dog.
Now you have an anxious dog because that's, again, they're feedback-driven creatures. So if
Right.
that's the feedback you give them when they give you that behavior, they're going to continue to do it, right? So, and that's across the board with any behaviors. Anything. If your dog is jumping on you and you give them attention, you are rewarding jumping, right?
Yep.
So if your dog is barking and you say, shh, shh, it's okay, you are rewarding barking.
Right.
Right? So it's across the board with any behavior.
Yep.
Okay? It's just that, maybe there's a little bit of a difference between, jumping and, developing full-blown, your dog is becoming anxious and needy with you. Okay? So there's also, there's so many tangents here to the
Yeah.
understanding of separation anxiety, but it's like, that's one thing, is understanding that you're probably coddling it.
Right.
You're probably rewarding it. You're probably babying the
Reinforcing.
dog and reinforcing it.
Yep.
Okay. The other part is no boundaries.
Yeah.
No boundaries. So meaning your dog just follows you around everywhere and you give no direction. I think that creates a lot of neediness.
Right.
Right? So it creates dependency.
Yeah.
Right? And so all of this is really just a lack of leadership
Right.
in reality, because the leader would not allow that to happen.
Right.
But why? Because the leader understands that your dog being in that state of mind is not beneficial for them. It's not good for them.
Right.
It's not good. So whereas it might fulfill you,
Right.
that
Okay.
you want that,
Yes.
it doesn't fulfill the dog.
Right.
And that's the hardest part.
Right.
The hardest part is understanding what is beneficial for the dog.
Right.
So this is why I'm saying the question of, wow, 3 weeks is so long, that I'm saying you're having a problem because that's the mindset.
Yeah.
The mindset is, oh, all right, well, you know what? I need to fix this problem. So however long it's going to take is what we're willing to do. And we do work with people that are like that. Okay, if you say it's going to be 5 weeks, it's going to be 5 weeks because we're in it for the long run, and we're going to do what is beneficial for the dog. Right?
Right.
So when we come in and we want to say, no, we can't do it, we only want to do this, and maybe we'll split up the time and the dog will come back and this and that, it tells me we're not going to be successful. We totally understand that that's a long time to be away from the dog.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
Right? We understand that. We have our own dogs.
Right.
We know that.
Yeah.
Okay, but we also know that, that again, it's going to take certain things from you deep down and real challenges from yourself to get to the place that you're looking to be. Right? Which is a balanced dog. A dog that doesn't have anxiousness, a dog that isn't reactive and, overprotective and all of that. And so, this again is all encompassing around leadership.
Right.
Right? Part of leadership is to say, well, look, my dog's mental state isn't correct. He doesn't have these skills. He doesn't know of all of these things. So we need to put our focus on developing those.
Right.
And understanding that takes time.
Yes.
It takes time to mold something. It takes time to teach things. It takes time to condition and build a habit.
Yes. And raise.
And raise the dog. It
Yeah.
takes time. So in reality, 3 or 4 weeks is not a long time. If you look at most board and trains, they're anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen some where the dogs stay with the trainers for months. So, you know, I feel like what we are able to do in 3 or 4 weeks is a lot.
Yeah.
And most of it is coming because we have this mentality,
Yeah.
because we understand dog behavior, because we understand the mindset. The teaching of the obedience is easy.
Right.
The hard part is the structure, the consistency, working through stress.
Yeah.
Okay, that's essentially what we're talking about when we're saying, hey, 3 weeks is a long time.
Right.
It's essentially stress that you got to work through. Your dog, yeah, I mean, as you guys have seen, when you try to work on your crate training or your separation and you see your dog stressing out and you feel bad and then you alleviate that, which essentially, again, is rewarded it.
Reinforcing,
You
yep.
rewarded it. You said, you are showing your dog, once you act like that, I'm going to give you what you want.
Right.
Instead of, and I get it, this is very difficult. We know as you push through that stress, you will get to the other side. You don't know that. You don't know that. Right? And then your dog also doesn't know that. Right? And that's a balancing act there that's pretty difficult. So we're coming in with a lot of teaching outside of just that whole like separation portion.
Right.
You know, we're trying to take care of, I'm going to teach you things and I'm going to guide you and I'm going to wear you out and stimulate you mentally. And then we're going to work on the separation. It's a lot easier that way than just sticking your dog in the crate and then letting them, you know, bark and howl and whine and drool and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I think the main thing to understand is like, go through that 3 or 4 weeks. Go through that. It might be difficult, but that's better to go through that short period of time than have the next 12 years
Yeah.
be terrible.
Right.
And have your dog be stressed out
Yeah.
and not living a great quality of life because we weren't strict for that period, that short period of time.
Right.
Right? Like, you got to look at the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
You know, the human approach is just short, so, you know,
Short term.
short term, obviously, that's where it is. I mean, we have 30-second videos and 60-second, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
attention spans and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Where here, you know, we're talking about creatures that are pattern-based creatures.
Right.
Right? And pattern meaning over time. Okay, so I think that's really how you have to look at that.
Right.
Okay, you have to say, okay, this is going to be a challenge for me that I'm going to be away from my dog for this amount of time, but that is what is required and what is beneficial for the dog.
Right.
Okay, you not doing that is only satisfying yourself
Yeah.
and going to keep your dog in that state of mind, which again, I think is a poor quality of life. It might be shaving time off of the dog's life.
Yeah.
It's the same for us. Anyone who's constantly stressed, you know, we know that, you know, shortens life.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So my goal is to remove stress from the dog by
Yes.
understanding, though, you are going to have to go through stress. Life is not unstressful.
Right.
It's not. It's a constant challenge, right? So
So yeah, teaching them how to go through stress,
teaching them how to go through stress.
but also having you guys maintain it after they leave.
Well, that's huge. I
Right?
mean, that's the biggest part.
Yeah, that's huge because we're only talking about 3 or 4 weeks out of the dog's entire life, like you said, the next 12 years. Well, if the dog leaves the program and you're right back to doing the same thing you were doing, it doesn't help any of us.
Well, it doesn't help. Nobody doesn't help you. It doesn't help the dog. Essentially,
No.
you wasted your money. You wasted your time.
Yeah.
Now, the dog is educated.
Of course.
The dog is. He's been taught.
Yeah.
He has the skills.
Yes.
Okay, I think the dog is 50% better.
Right.
For sure. You're going to notice, wow, my dog's better. You know, he knows the commands. He can be on the leash. And,
Right.
you know, he's going to have those things, but he's going to slip back into the same mindset based on your feedback.
Yes.
So this is why anybody who's had phone calls with me prior to, you know, doing training or whatever it is, you know, we spend a lengthy amount of time going over these concepts, which is actually what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important part.
Yeah.
You know, my job is to try to educate you on understanding what we're going to need to do in the long run here,
Right.
and understand why we're probably in this situation in the first place,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing right now. You're in a situation where your dog has separation anxiety because of these reasons.
Yeah.
So training doesn't solve that. No, you're going to have to understand your part in it.
Yeah.
Right? It starts and stops with you.
Yes.
What we do is we get the dog to that level,
Right.
and then you have to continue.
Yes.
Right? So, yes, the dog will slip back because they're feedback-driven creatures. So this is why we get our alumni to come back, because people want the dog to come back to the consistency. They want to come back to, where we're upholding structure and rules and giving direction
Balance.
and balance, and the dog isn't slipping back. And I mean, you know how it is if you sent your dog to your mom's house, or you send them to your sister's house to watch the dog for the weekend, and then you get the dog back, and like now it's doing things you didn't want it to do, and it was barking the whole time, and it was stealing food from the kids and all of that. That's not happening here. Right. So we're spending all the time teaching what we do want and controlling and limiting what we don't want. So that has to be upheld when we're done. And this is part of the coaching process. Right? It's part of the coaching, but we got to understand that the behavior starts and stops with you. Right? So yes, the afterward portion is huge. Okay, but even to just get there, you got to understand that that 3 weeks actually, in terms of board and train, is not a long time. It's actually very short. And I think that what we are able to deliver in that amount of time is actually a ton. It's a ton, and it's obviously because again we're doing this all day long, and I'm not farming it out to beginner trainers. That's also it. Okay. Yes. So that previous question of, are you hiring new trainers? Well, your dogs are being trained by us. 20 plus years of experience here. It's not being trained by a beginner trainer that I'm then coaching myself. No. So therefore, each session and all of our interactions and everything that we're doing is at a much higher level. Because it's coming from deep practitionership and tons of experience. Right? So again, it could be a long period of time for you, but it's actually not in the grand scheme of things. 3 weeks, 4 weeks in the scale of your dog's life is very minimal. It's very minimal. Right? So that's huge. A lot of our dogs that come in have some type of separation issue. And a lot,
our puppies.
even at young dogs, which we have right now. Dogs that we're sleeping in bed with you, and it's like, no boundaries and things like that. At a young age have created that neediness. So I think it's always about learning, okay, let me be structured and consistent with my dog for right now, for this first year or maybe plus, okay? And develop the habits I'm looking for and slowly start to allow for freedom as I've developed what I was looking for. Okay? And that way you can have a lot more freedom for those later years instead of 3, 4, 5 years of freedom, no structure, no teaching, no nothing, and then all of a sudden the rest of the life is very difficult. And again, we can work with dogs of all ages. It's just going to take more time. It's going to cost you more money. It's going to be more time. Now, instead of 3 weeks is a long time, it's now, wow, my dog needs 5 weeks. Whoa. Even though it's still not a long time. Okay, we're at 2 more weeks, 14 more days isn't a long time. Okay. Like, and again, in reality, 21 days is not a long time. Okay. So, but we can kind of keep breaking down separation in many different ways. Okay, many different ways, but I think just kind of going on the tail end here of that is what she had said was the afterwards. It's like so many dogs after our program, yes, they go back home and they're still doing things that, was a problem before. And all this is, which ties into the separation, is like too much freedom for the dog to make their own decisions. So I don't know how many times I'm told, well, what do we do? The dog is doing this. The dog is doing that. And I'm like, well, that's only happening because you are giving them the freedom to do that. So don't be surprised that your dog is going to do something. Could be anything. If you're going to say, you choose, do as you please. Don't be surprised that your dog is stealing things and chewing shoes and getting into the trash or barking at the door or
continuing to react on leash.
It's like, don't be surprised if you aren't going to be guiding them and holding them accountable. So that's really after the training, after some type of board and train program, you have to hold your dog accountable.
The training should then be a part of your lifestyle, right? We get the question all the time of, you know, how long should my dog be in training mode?
Right.
And it's really
Training mode.
right.
Like how long do I need to be training them?
Right. And it's really all the time. Because you should always be directing them.
Right.
You should always be telling them what to do and you know, that's okay, that's not okay, you have to go here, you can't do that. I mean, Dia is a perfect example of that.
Dia is a good example of that.
She came in extremely unruly. She was reactive to everything.
She was reactive. She was very impulsive.
Very impulsive.
She came in very hot.
Right.
You know, very demanding. And so, yeah, we trained her for 8 months.
Yeah.
Right? We literally trained her for 8 months. She was in our board and train program for 8 months.
Right.
And then slowly we started giving her freedom.
Yes.
Because we developed the skills and developed those as a habit. And so now, you know, we were then able to test her on her decision making based on what we had molded. And so she wasn't doing bad things. She wasn't chewing on things and getting into things because for 8 months we never allowed it.
Right.
Okay.
But,
so when you come in with your puppy
right.
and you allow those things from the beginning, like, don't be surprised that your dog is going to do those things. Dogs are going to explore with their mouth. They're going to get into things. They're going to tear things up. They're going to chew on things. And they're going to do that across the board for, you know, their age. Like, it almost doesn't matter. You can have an older dog that continues to do that because we haven't checked it and taught it at a younger age or just in general.
Yeah.
So, but the whole point was, don't be surprised by your dog's behavior if you are going to allow them to do as they please.
Right.
In reality, those are normal behaviors. Your dog chewing on something and destroying it is a normal behavior for the dog. The
Right.
dog doesn't know not to.
Right.
Right? They don't know not to. They don't know not to react on a leash. They don't know not to be overprotective. They don't know how to be insecure and run away from a skateboard. They don't know those things.
Right.
We are coming in with that human understanding
Right.
of how we want the dog to be and act around these things. We have to teach them.
Yes.
You have to teach them. So, training is one part. Our job, your trainer's job, is to develop the skills and develop the understanding. Your job is to then continue and uphold that.
Right.
Right? You have to raise the dog by doing that.
Right.
So yes, I mean we have an alumni client reach out yesterday and said, you know, hey, we're still having problems with him basically going around the house, stealing things and then chewing it up. And he was like, this isn't new, this was happening before.
Right.
Well, you're just allowing the dog to do that.
Right.
Right? Too much freedom. So it's too much freedom, but you also haven't effectively told him not to. Okay, those are, you know, two different things there where it's like just because, well, Dia, it's like just because we limited her freedom and her ability to move around for 8 months and she wasn't chewing on things didn't mean that eventually she came to a point where she had freedom where she's like, I'm going to take this chew.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had to remind her and say, nope, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, just because you limit your dog doesn't mean that eventually they won't try.
Right.
It's what you do when they try.
Yes.
Again, understanding you got to give them feedback to say that was wrong.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Right? So, look, that comes with just simply checking the dog. You're going to have to make some type of negative association with them grabbing your shoe. So, I want to prevent that from happening in the first place so that it happens less.
Yeah, proactive.
The possibility of it happening is less because
Yes.
the dog doesn't have the opportunity to. And then maybe the 1%, 2% chance that it does happen, you need to shut it down.
Yes.
Now the dog's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't even really think I could grab the shoe, but I just tried, and then you reminded me I'm not supposed to. Right? Versus a dog who's like, nope, I always grab the shoe, and then I make it a game, and then I take it and run it away from you and shred it apart.
Right.
Right? So, just the entire understanding and concept that, like, you have to be in control. You have to do this in your home.
Right.
You have to set the rules and teach your dog what to do, what they can't do, where they can go, where they can't go,
Yeah.
what they can have, what they can't have. You need to do those things.
Right.
And you need to do it, again, within your home first before you're trying to do that outside. If your dog doesn't listen to you inside of your home, they're not going to listen to you outside. And maybe they might listen to you a little bit better, and that's usually just because you're attached on the leash to them. Like, that's the time you have the most focus on them because they're on a leash.
Right.
Once you go inside, you remove that, which, again, we're tangent off here. It's like your tool.
Yes.
You need your tools. which is your leash. Again, so many questions of the same. So you mean I gotta have my leash on the dog inside?
Yes.
Like, we're blown away at that. And right away it tells me, oh, but you're not looking at the leash as a tool.
Right.
You're not looking at the leash as a tool to communicate to your dog.
Right.
That's what it is. Right?
You have to talk to them.
You have to, and not talk.
No.
Again, dogs don't understand words.
Talk in the way they understand.
Right. They don't care about words.
Right.
They are nonverbal creatures.
Yes.
They don't know what a word means until you pair some type of action to it.
Right.
They have no idea. This is why you can teach dogs in multiple languages, and you can literally teach them sit means down, down means sit.
Yeah. Tomato
I
means
mean,
sit.
I've taught a dog how to lay down by saying bagel.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Right. But you need your leash to talk to them because they are reactive physical creatures. So you need to use your tool. And then now again, another tangent. The dog chews the tool.
Yeah.
We have that right now.
Yeah.
One of our alumni just went home and they said, oh, he chewed the tab, the little handle. Well, if you're not going to watch him and you're not going to check him for chewing it, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So what did you expect?
Yes.
You got a young dog that's, well, he's not teething. He's in
No.
the chewing stage where he's going to strengthen his teeth and strengthen his jaw. He's going to chew things.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to chew this handle that just happens to be right next to my mouth.
Yeah.
Right? You have to come in and say, don't do that. So, again, just the concept here, the understanding was here was don't be surprised by your dog's behavior and their decisions if you're not there to guide and mold.
Right.
And so, use your confinement. I mean, 50% of the answer here is just don't give them the opportunity to.
Yeah.
Don't give them the opportunity to jump on your guests. Don't give them the opportunity to create separation and anxiety and neediness. Right? Don't give them the opportunity to be in the backyard digging and barking at the neighbor's dog. These are very simple understandings here that you're just giving them the opportunity to.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, that was super long there,
I know. Yeah.
but those are all very important here. If you can grasp those concepts there, then you're going to be like, oh, wait, my dog doesn't need to go to board and train.
Right.
Oh, wow, I can solve all these issues myself?
Right.
Okay, now look, there's no replacement for what we do.
Yeah.
You haven't trained thousands of dogs and haven't been doing this for 20 years and don't have original ideas on the concepts based on practitionership. That's where we're coming from, right? So there's no replacement for it, but I'm also trying to say, hey, like you could work on some of these yourself, and then we can help you take you to the next level.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the concepts.
Yeah.
Super important. The obedience is sort of secondary to those concepts. They're still very important, but
It's
I think we're going to end with understanding that your obedience should be at a level that is strong enough because you're using it as a way to communicate to the dog.
yes.
So again, the same response I'm given. Oh, my dog's great. He can sit and he can lay down. He's so good. He's so good. He could do this. He could high five. He's so good.
Yeah.
Except for this.
Right.
Right? And it's like, because that's not good.
Yeah.
Your dog has a slight understanding. You've slightly shaped it. But you aren't looking at it as, oh, this is actually how I'm going to communicate to my dog.
Right.
So it needs to be solid.
Yes.
It needs to be proofed.
Yeah.
My obedience needs to be proofed because this is my language between my dog and I.
Right.
When I tell them to lay down, I actually mean relax.
Right.
Right? When I say, come here, I need it to be strong and actually have them break focus and come because it's a safety issue. Right? When I say, I need my dog to know, okay, I've hit a limit, I'm not allowed to try anymore.
Right.
Right? So, just because your dog is quote unquote good with those things, it tells me that we don't understand that it's actually the language between you and your dog. And that's all you have. That's all you have is that. So I think we'll end there.
Yeah.
Yep. So ask us if more questions. We'll put that up again. You'll ask us more questions. A lot of times we write these out.
Right.
But we thought we would sit down and sort of answer them a little bit longer